just want to come on here and take the time to say how grateful I am for everyone, every single person who dedicated time and energy into looking for me. And I just want to say thank you. It means the world to me. Every day is such a gift, especially after such loss and pain and suffering. We should all learn to be kind to one another.
You don't have the whole story. It was the last message Hannah Kobayashi sent before she vanished. A cryptic warning that still echoes like a chill through her family's phones. The kind of sentence that makes you stop, reread, and wonder if you've just glimpsed the edge of something far darker than you can imagine. Hannah Eve Kobayashi was 30 years old. A gifted photographer from the serene shores of Maui, Hawaii. Her portfolio was filled with intricate mandala patterns and geometric compositions, the kind of images that seemed to pull the viewer into another dimension. She was vibrant, outgoing, and deeply curious. Someone who could talk for hours about art, technology, and the way the two could merge into something beautiful. But in early November of 2024, something shifted. And whatever happened, it pushed Hannah toward a fate no one could have predicted. On November 8th, 2024, Hannah boarded a flight from Maui to Los Angeles. The plan was simple: a connecting flight to New York to visit family and work on a new art project. But she never boarded that second plane. Somewhere between the warm skies of Hawaii and the bustling terminals of LAX, her journey began to veer off course. It wasn't a missed connection. It wasn't a scheduling issue. It was the first step into a mystery that would unravel in ways no one saw coming. Over the next 2 days, Hannah was spotted in seemingly random places around Los Angeles. Surveillance footage showed her at the Taschen bookstore at the Grove, leafing through glossy art books. Later, she appeared at the LeBron 22 Trial Experience event, a sports marketing pop-up that had no apparent connection to her life. Why was she there? Was she meeting someone? Or was she simply drifting, untethered from the trip she was supposed to be on? Then came the messages. Strange, unsettling, and unlike anything her friends or family had ever heard from her before. She wrote about her money and identity being stolen. She mentioned the Matrix. She hinted that someone or something was watching her. They weren't the poetic musings of an artist. They read like dispatches from someone trapped inside a nightmare. On November 11th, her phone's location was last logged at Los Angeles International Airport. Then, silence. Her phone went dark. Hid the guitar footprint into. It was as if Hannah had simply walked off the map. Her father, Ryan Kobayashi, flew from Hawaii to Los Angeles in a desperate search for his daughter. He retraced her steps, begged for information, and held on to hope with both hands. But weeks later, Ryan was found dead in a parking lot near LAX. Authorities ruled it a suicide. In the note he left behind, one line stood out, haunting in its quiet pain. Every parent lives in fear that their child will never come home. Oh, it was the first tragedy of this case, but not the last. By the end of November, Hannah's trail had gone cold in Los Angeles. Friends and relatives clung to every rumor, every unverified sighting. And then, a month after she was last seen, a new lead surfaced, not in California, but hundreds of miles away, across the U.S. border. Authorities in Mexico confirmed that Hannah had crossed into Tijuana. She was alone, carrying luggage, and appeared calm in surveillance footage. There was no sign of distress, no sign she was being forced. It was as if she had chosen to walk into another chapter of her life, one that no one else understood. Her suitcase became the next point of obsession. Witnesses recalled her dragging a large piece of luggage through a hotel lobby in Baja, California. The weight of it forcing her to move slowly. Some thought she might be carrying camera equipment, but others noticed her clutching it too tightly, as if it contained something she couldn't risk losing. What was inside has never been publicly confirmed. Text messages continued, but they grew stranger. Hannah spoke of systems, patterns, and the Matrix again. Her words scattered and disjointed. She warned her friends not to trust anyone. She claimed her identity had been compromised. When someone asked if she was safe, she replied only, "You're looking at the wrong story." Ugh. For a brief moment, hope flickered. People imagined that she might be on some self-imposed journey, a retreat from the noise of the modern world. But then, communication stopped entirely. Her phone was switched off again. Bank activity ceased. The suitcase and Hannah vanished. In the absence of new evidence, theories began to multiply. Some believed she had fallen victim to human trafficking. Others thought she had suffered a mental health crisis, her mind unraveling in real time through those cryptic messages. A few suggested she had willingly cut ties with her old life, disappearing into Mexico under a new identity. But there was one more detail that deepened the mystery. Just days before crossing into Mexico, she had reportedly tried to withdraw a large sum of money from her account. The transaction failed, but the attempt raised a question that would haunt investigators. Was she trying to run from someone or toward something? By December, official search efforts slowed. There were no confirmed sightings, no new leads, no trace of where she went after Mexico. The timeline had gaps so wide you could fall into them. Every clue seemed to lead to another dead end. And then, another blow. A close family friend who had been helping with the search was hospitalized after what authorities described as a stress-related collapse. The search for Hannah had begun to claim more lives than just her father's. In the shadows of unanswered questions, one truth remained. Somewhere out there, in the vast sprawl of Mexico or beyond, Hannah Kobayashi had crossed a line between reality and disappearance, and no one could say if she would ever be seen again. Before her disappearance, Hannah's friends had started noticing subtle shifts in her behavior. At first, they seemed harmless. Late-night messages filled with abstract thoughts, sudden bursts of paranoia about her devices being hacked, long silences followed by rapid, disjointed conversations. One friend recalled a dinner in Maui just a month before she left for Los Angeles. Hannah had brought her camera, as always, but instead of taking the usual portraits or landscapes, she focused entirely on strange, almost mathematical patterns. The way shadows cut across the tablecloth, the symmetry of glassware, the reflection of candlelight on metal cutlery. When asked what she was doing, she simply said, "It's all connected. You just have to see it." She had also begun talking about something she called the system. The way she described it, it was everywhere. Not a government, not a company, but a kind of invisible structure that decided what people saw, what they knew, and even how they thought. She told a cousin, "Once you notice it, you can't unsee it. That's when they notice you back." And this, in the weeks leading up to her trip, Hannah's online presence became erratic. She deleted hundreds of old photographs from her social media accounts. She messaged a small circle of people telling them to save copies of anything she'd sent them because there might be a wipe. She called her bank multiple times to change her passwords. Convinced someone was trying to take control of her accounts, family members assumed stress was getting the better of her. She had been juggling freelance photography work, traveling, and a strained relationship that had recently ended. But those closest to her began to feel an undercurrent of something deeper, the kind of anxiety that comes when a person is genuinely afraid. The last week before she left Maui, Hannah spent most of her time indoors. She canceled social plans, ignored phone calls, and barely slept. One neighbor reported seeing her outside at 3 a.m., barefoot, staring at the night sky as if she was looking for something moving between the stars. When she finally boarded the plane to Los Angeles, she told her mother she was ready to see it through. Her mother assumed she meant the New York project. But looking back, those words sound more like a mission statement. As if Hannah believed she was stepping into a final chapter she had already accepted. The footage from Los Angeles only adds to the unease. In the bookstore, she flips through an oversized photography book on architecture, but never turns more than a few pages. At the LeBron event, she walks past the crowd, head turning sharply every few seconds, scanning. In neither clip does she appear relaxed. She is there, but her mind seems elsewhere. Calculating, searching, waiting. Investigators would later confirm something small but chilling. In every public sighting of Hannah after she arrived in Los Angeles, she was carrying the same black messenger bag. It was never opened on camera. No one knows what was inside. By the time she crossed into Mexico, that bag was gone. When Hannah crossed into Mexico, the surveillance footage caught her in brief, almost fleeting clarity, stepping off a shuttle bus, adjusting her jacket, and glancing over her shoulder twice before disappearing into the flow of pedestrians. She didn't look lost. She didn't look frightened. If anything, she seemed purposeful. Her entry into Tijuana was recorded at 3:17 p.m. on December 5th, 2024. Less than an hour later, she was seen at a mid-range hotel on a busy commercial street. She wheeled her suitcase to the front desk, spoke briefly to the clerk, and signed in under her real name. The camera in the lobby caught a detail that still unsettles investigators. When she handed over her passport, she kept her fingers wrapped around it a moment too long, as though she didn't want to let go. In her room, she ordered only bottled water and fruit from room service. The staff member who delivered it said she smiled politely but kept the door only halfway open, her eyes darting past him toward the hallway, as if checking who else might be there. That night, she did not leave the hotel. The next morning, she was gone. Her bed was made, the fruit untouched. The only items missing were her suitcase, her black messenger bag, and a small leather-bound notebook she had been seen carrying in Los Angeles. She left behind her hotel key and, inexplicably, her passport. Around midday, a woman matching her description was spotted at the Tijuana bus terminal, boarding a northbound coach toward Ensenada. Witnesses disagreed on what she was wearing. One claimed she had changed into a dark hoodie and baseball cap. Another swore she still had on the tan coat from the border crossing. In both accounts, she was alone. The bus arrived in Ensenada at 3:00 p.m. There is no footage of her getting off, whether she stepped off between stops, or whether she reached the station and slipped out of view. No one knows. From that moment on, Hannah Kobayashi disappeared from every camera, every transaction, every traceable path. Investigators later discovered that in the week before crossing the border, Hannah had booked 3 separate hotel rooms in Mexico under different names. 2 of those bookings were never used. The third, in a seaside village over 100 miles south of Ensenada, was canceled at the last minute. The question was obvious. Had she been planning multiple escape routes? Her family's private investigators spent weeks retracing the trail in Mexico. Local police were cooperative, but cautious, pointing out that Tijuana is a city where people vanish every day, for reasons that range from voluntary disappearances to violent crime. But even in that context, Hannah's case stood out, not for what was found, but for how cleanly she had vanished. In January, a final, unverified lead surfaced. A fisherman in a small coastal town claimed to have seen an American woman with long dark hair staying at a rented casita for just one night. She spoke little Spanish, paid in cash, and left before sunrise, carrying nothing but a single canvas tote. The fisherman remembered her because she had asked him, in halting Spanish, "Do you believe the world is real?" If it was Hannah, that question would be the last anyone ever heard from her. By the time January turned into February, The official search for Hannah in Mexico had slowed to a crawl. The trail was weeks old, the leads fragmentary, the geography vast. Every promising tip seemed to dissolve the moment it was examined. Her mother and a handful of close friends refused to let the case fade. They created missing person flyers in English and Spanish, posted them along highways, near bus stations, and in small coastal towns. They visited police stations, hospitals, and even morgues, a process her mother described as walking through a series of locked doors, not knowing if one of them will open or crush you. The FBI became involved early, but their jurisdiction was limited. They coordinated with Mexican authorities, exchanging information on phone records and bank accounts. But the data yielded nothing. Hannah's phone had gone silent. Her bank cards were dormant. No one was using her passport. Meanwhile, the internet took hold of the story. On social media, amateur sleuths dissected every piece of surveillance footage, speculating about who might have been following her, or whether she had staged her own disappearance. Some pointed to the Matrix references in her messages, suggesting she might have fallen into an online conspiracy community before she vanished. Others latched onto her canceled hotel bookings as evidence of an elaborate plan to drop out of sight entirely. The most unsettling theory emerged from a series of anonymous emails sent to a local journalist. The sender claimed Hannah had been working on a photography project involving high-profile figures in both the U.S. and Mexico, and that she had seen something she wasn't supposed to. The journalist tried to verify the claim, but the source disappeared after 3 messages, and the email account was deleted. Her mother, exhausted but unwavering, continued to travel back and forth between Hawaii and Mexico, chasing every rumor. In one particularly cruel twist, she received a tip that Hannah had been spotted in a shelter for migrants in Sonora. The woman there resembled her daughter, down to the same long, dark hair. But when they arrived, it wasn't Hannah. As weeks turned into months, the family began to reckon with a bitter truth. In cases like this, time is the enemy. Without new evidence, the trail would only grow colder. And yet, they couldn't stop searching. Every unanswered question burned like an open wound. Why did she leave her passport in Tijuana? What was in the messenger bag? And why, in those last strange messages, did she seem convinced that someone was controlling the story? The private investigator had one last piece of information. A few days before crossing into Mexico, Hannah had used a public library computer in Los Angeles to look up ferry schedules along the Baja coast. The searches included routes that led to remote fishing villages, places where cell service was spotty, and where strangers could disappear for years without anyone asking questions. Whether she was planning to hide in one of those places, or whether she had been taken there by force, remained unknown. But the idea took root in her family's minds. Maybe she was still alive, somewhere far from the reach of the cameras and the headlines. And if she was, the question that haunted them was no longer where she was, but whether she even wanted to be found. In the quiet after the search efforts slowed, a different kind of investigation began, not into where Hannah had gone, but into why she might have left at all. Friends and family revisited every conversation, every unusual text, every detail that, at the time, seemed insignificant. Patterns began to emerge, not in the geography of her disappearance, but in the architecture of her mind. Some described her as restless in the months before she vanished. Almost like she was anticipating something, she talked more frequently about signals, not the kind you get from a cell tower, but the invisible cues in society that, according to her, shaped people's choices without them realizing. She said she could see the seams, as if reality were stitched together and she'd found the threads. Her former partner remembered waking up one night to find her scrolling through grainy satellite images on her laptop, cross-referencing them with obscure forum posts about coastal surveillance points. When he asked what she was doing, she closed the screen and said, "If you know where to stand, you can watch the whole game play out." Mental health professionals consulted by the family offered several possibilities: paranoid delusion, manic episode, or the early stages of a psychotic break. But others, including those who had known her for years, argued that Hannah was lucid, perhaps even more so than before. They pointed out that she never once expressed suicidal thoughts, never hinted at despair. If anything, she seemed driven, as though she were following a trail only she could see. The Matrix references became a focal point. In her messages, Hannah used the term interchangeably to describe both technology and social systems, blending ideas from science fiction with observations about real-world events. She told a friend, "They built it so you think you're free, but you're not. And if you find the door out, they come for you." Oh, if these were the thoughts of someone in crisis, they were also the thoughts of someone planning her library searches in Los Angeles, her multiple hotel bookings, the cash withdrawals she attempted. They all pointed to preparation. She didn't just vanish on impulse. And yet, there was a fragility to her final movements. As if she were walking a line between determination and fear, her glance over the shoulder in the Tijuana footage, the way she clung to her passport before surrendering it at the hotel desk, the unconfirmed sighting in the fishing village, where she asked if the world was real. These were breadcrumbs left not only for others to find her, but perhaps for her to remember who she was if she ever wanted to come back. Theories kept branching in opposite directions. Was Hannah Kobayashi running from a threat that existed only in her mind, or from one that was real enough to erase her from 2 countries without a trace? And if she was still out there, had she finally found the door she'd been searching for? Or had she walked straight into a trap she could never escape? As 2025 unfolded, Hannah's name began to fade from headlines. News stories took her place in the news cycle, and the urgency of her case became something quieter. Not gone, but simmering in the background, sustained only by those who loved her. Her mother continued to make public appeals, speaking to reporters, joining podcasts, appearing in online forums where strangers still traded theories about what happened. Each time, she returned to the same point. Hannah was more than a mystery, more than a headline. She was a daughter, an artist, a woman who once filled her life with color and light. The last official update from investigators was stark. No confirmed sightings since the bus to Ensenada, no verified communications since the final cryptic messages, no trace of the suitcase, the black messenger bag, or the notebook she carried in Los Angeles. The Mexican police filed her case under missing.com. Ongoing. While U.S. authorities kept her name in their database, a thread dangling in an infinite list of the disappeared. In the absence of answers, the space was filled by imagination. Some were convinced she was living off the grid, perhaps under a new identity, waiting for the right moment to resurface. Others feared the worst, that she had been caught in something dangerous. Her disappearance covered so thoroughly that even her loved ones would never know the truth. For her friends, the hardest part was reconciling the 2 images of Hannah, the woman they knew, laughing on a Maui beach, camera in hand, and the figure in the surveillance footage, glancing over her shoulder as she stepped into Mexico. Carrying with her secrets she never had the chance to explain. On the anniversary of her disappearance, a candlelight vigil was held on Maui's North Shore. Those who came stood in silence, the ocean at their backs, the wind carrying the smell of salt and rain. Her photographs were displayed on a makeshift wall, not just her art, but portraits she'd taken of family, friends, and strangers she'd met in her travels. The images seemed to stare back at the crowd, as if Hannah herself was still watching from somewhere far away. In her final message, she told them, "You don't have the whole story." Maybe she was warning them. Maybe she was inviting them to look deeper. Or maybe she was reminding them that the truth, like her, might exist in a place just beyond reach. And so the question remains, was Hannah Kobayashi's disappearance an act of survival or a surrender to something she could no longer fight? Until the day she is found, the answer will remain locked in the same place she vanished into, the shadows between what is real and what we believe is real.